Hey, did you watch 22 to 12? No. What do you mean no? Then why are you watching 11 to 1? Go watch 22 to 12, and then watch 11 through 1. If you did watch 22 to 12, you're in the right place. This is 11 to 1 of the best MCU movies. The top 22 best MCU movies. I didn't mention this in part 1 of this, but I did make this sort of list last year when Infinity War came out, and there are only 19 of them. But now that the saga has pretty much closed as of right now, I feel like it would be great to make this list. So yeah. Anyways guys, this is top 22 best MCU movies. 11 through 1. But before we get started, you know the usual. Like this video, subscribe if you're new, turn on the notifications, and leave a comment and you'll be a loyal subscriber. Yeah, you will.
Number 11. Your father will die.
Doctor Strange seemed like a risk. A huge risk that paid off. Instead of the usual save the world, stop the villain sort of movie, this is similar to Harry Potter with its magic theme. I mean, it's still save the world, stop the villain, but it's got a nice twist to it. This movie definitely has a villain problem though, with Caecilius, played by the very talented Mads Mikkelsen, in which I would say it's sort of a waste of his talent. It is pretty funny though, I like the humor in it, and I think we can all agree what the best scene in this entire movie is.
Dormammu, I've come to bargain.
I wanted to give to you, in the last part of your notes here, the significance spiritually of the number 10.
You might say that number 10 is pretty low for Black Panther, but that shows how tough it was to make the second half of this list, and I also think that this movie's a bit overrated. However, it's still pretty good. This is a bit of a different kind of movie, as this is about a king and his kingdom, rather than the usual save the world, and it has very mature themes to it. It's actually more similar to The Lion King than anything else. It's probably the most mature movie in the MCU. I would say one bad thing about it, and that is that the jokes are really forced, including that one. Oh boy, including that one.
The real question is, what are those?
However, you do have a really well put together, really enjoyable film. I would say that all the Oscars were a bit much. SpiderMan Homecoming is a bit different too. You're actually in the point of a high schooler who has to deal with being both a high schooler and a superhero, trying to keep his identity away from his family and his friends. I also really like the Vulture in this, which is the villain, who, unlike all the other villains, Vulture isn't really bad. He just does evil things that he thinks is good, and he does it to help his family. I will say though that the Shocker was pretty boring though. It was barely in it. So really, like, it is definitely not ambitious by any means, but it's definitely very rewatchable, and it's just a very enjoyable ride of a movie to watch.
So I'm going to be giving this flavor 8.5 out of 10 scoops.
Thor Ragnarok is the third and final film in the Thor trilogy, and by far the best. Like, by far. Director Taika Waititi brought a well put together film and introduced big names to the MCU, such as Jeff Goldblum, Kate Blanchett, and Tessa Thompson, and even included the Hulk. And some even call this movie somewhat of a Hulk movie. What this movie did so differently was it strayed away from the boring-ish concept from the first two Thor movies. It sort of killed them for a lot of people. If you really dislike the first two Thor movies, still, give this one a watch.
36.
Very close, but that's not it. Let's go to Gary the Retard. What number between 2 and 4?
Again, a testament to how tough this list was to make includes of Captain America, the Winter Soldier, and is only at number 7. Not even the top 5, damn. And it's still a great movie. Winter Soldier has everyone from the title man Captain America himself, but also other characters such as Black Widow, Falcon, Nick Fury, and of course Winter Soldier. Plus, I like everything with Hydra and that damn elevator scene. Roll the clip.
Before we get started, does anyone want to get out?
This political thriller demonstrated how much variety the MCU has. It's packed with action and is a must-see if you want to see the MCU films.
Okay, Mrs. Puff, what's my final score?
6.
Woo!
The Guardians of the Galaxy sounds absolutely terrible on paper. A movie about just some normal chubby dude, a green-skinned assassin lady, a green-skinned rampaging man, a tree, and a talking raccoon should never work, yet James Gunn made it so it did. This movie is filled with crazy, funny moments and jokes that never feel messed up in any way like how they did in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. It does have a villain problem with Ronan the Accuser, as he's just a bit boring for me, and the performance just seems a bit odd, but these characters are probably the best part of the movie, as they're all very connectable and lovable, every single one of them, to the point where you get a bit emotional when a tree dies. It's simple to say that if you haven't seen this movie, you are just crazy.
Oh, chills. Literal chills.
It was number 5. Number 5 for my brother.
Oh my god, I forgot about that.
Now for the movie that started it all. You'd expect after 21 more movies and 10 more years, this would not hold up as well, but it does. Robert Downey Jr. kills it as Tony Stark, and made Iron Man into a pop culture icon. I also like Obadiah Stane, also known as Ironmonger in this movie, as a villain. I think he's one of the better MCU villains, as it was one of the first ones. The weight of the world wasn't on its shoulders, which made for more great storytelling. Although it's the beginning of this whole saga, it still remains as one of the best to this day.
7, 5. Number 4.
Not only did Captain America Civil War divide the Avengers, but the audience as well. I personally was Team Stark at first, as I felt it had more star power, but then moved to Team Cap later on when I actually found out the plot. I thought that Team Cap was more right, but as you watch the movie, I wouldn't be surprised if you keep flip-flopping between the two sides. So that's something good it does. You really don't stick with a specific side throughout the whole movie. It's got tons of action, including that damn airport scene. Maybe one of my favorite sequences in the entire MCU.
They're not stopping.
Neither are we.
The only reason it's not higher for me is the villain. Not that Zemo is a bad villain, but he's more unneeded, as it seems for the most of the movie at least. The villain is really the side you don't want to win, but then you cut to the villain, and it's like, oh yeah, that's right, there's an actual villain in this movie. Otherwise, this movie would be even higher. If Iron Man started the MCU, the Avengers probably gave the MCU its footing it was trying to find for the rest of Phase 1. Whether it's how our heroes meet, that beginning sequence with all the fighting, or how this made Loki more interesting, this movie was worth the hype. It's also massive, and it was probably the first major blockbuster for the MCU, and it delivered. Just seeing all these heroes after, what was it, like 5 movies building up to this, at the time was huge. Now look at us now. We also can't ignore the excellence of the Battle of New York. Enough said.
What kind of pencil do we take again?
Number 2. Take a number 2.
Looks like you took a big number 2.
Talking about team-ups and build-ups, Avengers Infinity War straight up blew me and probably all you guys away with its sheer awesomeness. Not only is Thanos hands down the best MCU villain, but the movie is sort of in his perspective, making him kind of the protagonist of the story. That's different. Yeah. It was also just great seeing some characters that haven't been seen together before, and all those cheer-worthy moments like when Rocket, Groot, and Thor arrive on Wakanda with Stormbreaker, the scene when Black Widow, Scarlet Witch, and Okoye are about to fight Proxima Midnight, and just about every scene when a character is being introduced. It's all happiness. Until that damn snap. Should have aimed for the head, Thor. I know Infinity War might be much more neat, much more polished, much more consistent of a film, but I feel the stakes, the emotions, the feel-good moments, and the fact that this is the end of an 11-year-long, 22-movie-long saga puts Avengers Endgame at number 1 for me. Like I said, it's definitely a lot less consistent and neat or polished storyline-wise in comparison to Infinity War. And in the terms of time travel, with the rules of time travel, this movie does make no sense. But all the fan service and goosebump moments, I think they all save it for me. My personal favorite one being... I feel it's the right way to end not only the Infinity Saga, but the Iron Man saga too. If you're a fan of Marvel and the Marvel movies and you ignore all the time travel inconsistencies or inconsistencies in general, or if you ignore the inconsistencies of Fat Thor or Professor Hulk, if you really don't like Professor Hulk, or the way that they handled Black Widow's death, if you don't let them ruin the movie for you, you have a film that you will absolutely love. Well, that'll be it for this video. That's my top 22 best MCU movies. Ranked from worst to best. What do you think? Do you agree with me? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.